Before this story truly begins, pause for a moment and subscribe to the channel. The stories shared here aren't simple entertainment. They are fragments of real emotion, moments when life fractures, when hearts bend under quiet weight, and sometimes, when healing begins in the most unexpected way. If you've ever lost someone without answers. If silence has ever cut deeper than harsh words. Then this story belongs to you. Now let me tell you about Ethan. That evening, Ethan kept himself busy around the house. He moved from one minor repair to another, tightening a loose cabinet hinge, adjusting a drawer that stuck, replacing a flickering bulb in the hallway. None of it was urgent. None of it truly needed fixing right then. But staying busy meant staying distracted. And distraction was safer than memory. Because whenever Ethan slowed down, his thoughts drifted back to the same place, the same emptiness, the same questions that never found answers, the same name he avoided saying out loud. Emily. The kitchen glowed softly under warm yellow light, making the room feel gentler than it really was. The only sound was the steady rhythm of dishes clinking as his mother, Linda, stood at the sink washing them one by one. She moved carefully. Too carefully. Not rushed, but not relaxed either. Ethan noticed everything. The slight curve of her shoulders. The controlled breathing. The quiet strength in the way she kept going. Whenever she looked at him, she gave him a small, reassuring smile. But her eyes carried worry she never voiced. He finished tightening the cabinet screw and tested it once more. Solid. Secure. Something that held. He wiped his hands and leaned against the counter, exhaling slowly. It had been more than a year since Emily walked away. A year since his life divided into two chapters, before her leaving and after. She hadn't shouted. She hadn't accused him. She hadn't even cried. She simply said she needed to leave. No explanation. No argument. No dramatic ending. Just silence. The quiet in the kitchen felt heavy, not uncomfortable, just thick with unspoken grief. And in that stillness, Ethan realized something that made his chest tighten. His mother had been carrying everything. The house. Her own worries. His heartbreak. The missing laughter that once filled these rooms. Without thinking it through, he stepped behind her and wrapped his arms gently around her shoulders. It wasn't desperation. It wasn't sorrow. It was gratitude. For the meals she kept cooking. For the questions she never forced. For holding the world steady while he quietly fell apart. Linda stiffened for a second, surprised by the sudden embrace. Then she slowly leaned back into him. Her hands remained under the running water, but he felt the slight tremble in her fingers. She exhaled. Not a normal sigh, something shakier. Something fragile. Ethan stepped back just enough to see her face. And that's when he knew. Something wasn't right. Her expression wasn't simply sad. It was conflicted. Gentle. Afraid. Like someone standing at the edge of a truth they had been postponing for far too long. Ethan, she whispered, her voice unsteady in a way he had never heard before. There's something I need to tell you. His stomach tightened. What do you mean? He asked carefully. She turned off the faucet. The house grew even quieter. Not here, she said softly. Come sit with me. And suddenly, he understood, this wasn't casual. This wasn't a random memory from the past. This was something bigger. They sat at the small dining table. The air between them felt charged, as if every silent night over the past year had been leading to this exact moment. Linda folded her hands together, gripping them tightly. The tea between them had already cooled, steam fading into nothing. She didn't look at him at first. She stared at the table, collecting courage she had delayed for months. Ethan waited. Inside, everything felt tight, his chest, his throat, his patience. Every instinct told him this had something to do with Emily. Finally, she looked up. Her eyes shimmered, not dramatically, but with quiet regret. "I've been watching you," she said gently. "Since she left." He stiffened. "I've seen you pretend you're okay," she continued. "Going to work. Fixing things around the house. Smiling when people ask how you are." Her voice softened. "And I've seen that smile disappear when you think no one is watching." He wanted to protest. To say he was fine. But she shook her head. "Not with me," she whispered. Then her hand moved toward the drawer beside her. She hesitated before opening it, as though touching it would make everything real. From inside, she pulled out an envelope, creased, slightly worn, clearly opened and handled more than once. She placed it gently on the table. "This came a week after Emily left," she said quietly. "It was meant for you." Ethan stared at it. "A letter?" he asked faintly. "She wrote to me?" Linda nodded. "She came by when you weren't home." She was devastated. She could barely speak. "She asked me to give this to you, but she also begged me not to." His jaw tightened. "She said if she heard your voice, she wouldn't be strong enough to leave. She didn't want you to think she walked away without caring." "Then why didn't you give it to me?" Ethan asked softly, not angry, just hurt. "I thought she might come back," Linda whispered. "And I was afraid the letter would only reopen your wounds if she didn't." She swallowed. "I didn't know if I was protecting you, or stealing something from you." Silence settled heavily between them. Ethan reached for the envelope. It felt impossibly light in his hands, too fragile to contain answers big enough to matter. But he knew it did. Every sleepless night. Every unanswered question. Every memory he replayed. All of it narrowed down to this thin piece of paper. He slid his finger under the flap. His heart pounded. Whatever was inside would reshape the past year, and maybe his understanding of everything. He slowly unfolded the letter. But before his eyes could reach the first word, a knock echoed through the house. Firm. Clear. Unexpected. Both of them froze. The knock wasn't aggressive. But it carried intention. Urgency. Linda looked toward the door. Ethan stood, the letter still in his hand. Then a voice followed, soft, hesitant, heartbreakingly familiar. "Ethan?" His breath stopped. There are voices we never forget. Even after a year. Even after silence. He walked slowly toward the door, each step heavier than the last. His hand trembled as it reached for the handle. He opened it. And there she was. Emily. She looked thinner. Tired. But her eyes held the same warmth he remembered. And something else. Regret. Neither of them spoke for several seconds. The air between them filled with everything left unsaid. "I didn't know if you'd want to see me," she said quietly. He still held the letter. "You wrote to me," he said, his voice barely steady. Her eyes dropped to the envelope. "I didn't think you ever read it." "I didn't," he replied. "Until tonight." She nodded slowly. "I left because I was scared," she admitted. "Not of you. Of myself. Of not being enough." of dragging you into my chaos. I thought leaving would protect you. And did it? He asked. Her eyes filled. No. Silence again, but different this time. Not empty. Not heavy. Honest. I never stopped loving you, she whispered. Ethan looked at her for a long moment. A year ago, he had been left with nothing but silence. Tonight, he had a letter in one hand, and the truth standing in front of him. Some stories break us. Some bend us. And sometimes, just sometimes, they bring us back to the moment where everything can either fall apart or finally begin again. And this time, Ethan wasn't afraid of the answer.